Now we are done with this class, right? Now we need to write a program. We need to write a program that tests the class. So let's first compile this to see if we have any errors. So we're in a chapter 7 folder. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this. What's the name of this? This is what, number analysis. Yeah. So number analysis, and I'm going to create the folder, and I'm going to save this as number analysis.java. Right. The name of the file has to be the same as the name of what's here basically. Save it. All right, we have a few errors, so let's fix it. All right. So over here it's saying unreported exception java.io. Okay, so basically what this is saying, it's saying it must be caught or declared to be thrown. All right. So anytime you use files, the file object, okay, have the potential to throw an exception or basically cause an error. So for example, when you try to read from a file that, let's say, it doesn't exist, or let's say that some issue is encountered, that object can throw an exception. And because we haven't learned by this point how to write our own exceptions, we have to tell the program that, okay, there's this particular code that has the potential to throw an error, or basically cause an error. And so until we learn, when we do that in later chapters, until we learn how to write our own exceptions, we have to let it know so that it handles it for us. Okay, until we know. Basically, that's what we're doing. We are throwing the exception back. The exception is going to be thrown, right? So basically, it's highlighting this part for us. It's highlighting when I compile. It's highlighting this part, saying that when we try to read from a file, an exception can occur. This has the potential to throw an exception. So we need to tell, the method that it's in. Okay, you have to basically let the method know that this line of code here, or this block, has code that has the potential to throw an exception. Normally, when it has the potential to throw an exception, you have to write code to handle it. But because we haven't learned how to do that yet, okay, which we will soon in later chapters, we have to let this method know that, hey, we haven't learned how to write our own code yet, but this has a potential to throw an error, so I'm letting you know. And the way you do that is by adding this which is throws IO exception at the end of the method header. So we're saying this method contains code that has the potential to throw an IO exception. And so we haven't learned how to write our own code to handle exceptions. So for now, handle it for us. Take care of it for us until we learn how to write our code, right? So this is taken care of because this has code that has the potential to cause an error. So let's compile. And it's telling us the same thing. Unreported exception Java, okay, it must be caught or declared, but this time in a different location, right? See, it's not here anymore, it's here. Why? Because this also has the potential to cause an error. And we haven't learned how to write our own code to handle exceptions yet. Later chapters we will. But if we haven't, we still have to let whatever method that this code is in, we have to let this, a constructor is kind of like a method. It's kind of like a method. So we have to let it know that, okay, it contains code. In our case, it's this line here. We're saying this contains code, this line here, this line of code that has the potential to cause an error. So we also have to specify the end of this header. This has the potential. This throws an IO exception. It has the potential to throw an IO exception. Okay, and that's the exception type, an IO exception. That's file exception, file errors, and all that stuff. So when I compile this, now we're all set. Okay, now one thing you should know about this: if you have a method that exists within another method, okay, if you have a method that exists within another method, let's say we had a method. Let's use this one. This example. Let's say we had this method that existed in another method. Even though we've added this throws IO exception, we also need to add throws IO exception to the outer method. Okay, that's very important. If you have a method, okay, that sits in another method. Let's say the inner. If you have a method, okay, let's start with the inner method. If you have an inner method that has code, okay, that can throw, that has the potential to throw an exception, you have to first tell that method, the inner method, okay, that this method has the potential to or has code that has the potential to throw an exception. At the same time, you have to go to the outer method and then specify that as well, right? Because that outer method has code inside of it, okay, which happens to be the inner method, okay, that has the potential to throw an IO exception. So I hope that that's clear, right? Basically, if you have two methods, one sitting in another, if the inner method has the potential to throw an error, you have to specify to both methods, right? Because the outer method has an inner method which has the potential to create or throw an IO exception. I hope it's clear. Don't worry, we'll talk more about exceptions as we move through later chapters. All right, so our class is done. Now we need to create the program that's going to test the class, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Create a new file. Let's go ahead and create the class. So public class. Okay, I'll save this in a second. But basically, as long as you're saving those two files, as long as you're saving those two files in the same folder, they should be able to see each other, right? If you don't save those two files in the same folder, you have to specify, okay, the path of where the class is when you try to create an object from that class, right? So let's create this public class. I'm going to call this number analysis test, right? All right, so let's go ahead and create the main method. Oopsie. All right, so it's going to be public static void main. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to ask, okay, let's go ahead and save it. All right, so now, this is our folder, right? And I'm going to go ahead and create this one also here in that same folder. As long as you save, as long as you save this file in the same folder, when you try to create an object from the number analysis class, they should be able to see each other. You should say, okay, I know there's a class in here, so I can, create an object from it, right? So make sure you save it in the same folder. If not, then you have to specify to this program, okay, where the class is before it can create an object from that class. I'm going to save it here. All right, now we need to basically prompt the user to enter a file name, right? When we try to create an object from the class, we need a scanner class for that. So I'm going to import java.util.scanner, and we need to create a scanner object. I'm going to call it keyboard because we're going to prompt for information from the keyboard. I'm going to create a new scanner object in memory. I'm going to pass in the input. The input happens to be the keyboard. System.in represents the keyboard. It's going to allow us to accept byte info from the user. We are going to use we're going to use the methods in the scanner class to be able to convert that byte info to whatever data we want it to, whether it's doubles or strings or whatever we want it to be. All right, so now we can ask the user to enter the name of the file. So system.out.println, we say, please enter the name of the file, right? And then now I'm going to call keyboard, basically our scanner object, use a scanner object to call keyboard.nextLine. And we know keyboard.nextLine is going to prompt a text box, and it's going to allow the user to type in something. Now whatever the user types is going to be returned as a string. So we need a place to store that. So I'm going to create a string variable. I'm going to call it user file name. And then whatever the user types is going to be returned as a string, and we're going to store it in user file name. All right, so now that we have the user file name, we can use it to create the file. All right, we need to create an object of the number analysis class in order to use it, right? So I'm going to do that. Now I'm creating a variable, a class type variable of the number analysis type. I'm creating a variable, and I'm going to call it, let's say, number analysis 1. Now this is just a variable. When you do this, this is just like creating a variable like this. When you create an int number, right? This is the type and this is the variable name. Now you can think of this way. This is the type and this is the name, right? In this case, this is an object, but this is a variable. Yeah, so they're both variables, but of different types. This is a class type variable and this is a primitive variable. The variable that's going to hold primitive data type or primitive data. So we've created an object here. When you try to do this, right, it's going to say, okay, this is not one of the primitive data types. So it's going to look through your folder to see if there's anything that exists, if the class exists. If it exists in the folder, it's going to say, okay, now I know you've created this. That's this to store, okay, a number analysis object, right? So now this is just a variable that's going to hold a number analysis object. Now let's go ahead and create a number analysis object. So I'm going to create a new number analysis object in memory. We created the constructor to accept the file name. This is the constructor to accept the file name to read from, and we have it from the user over here, user file name. So I'm going to pass that in here. We'll have the object, and once we have the object, we can go ahead and basically display user object to call the methods in the class, right? So I'm going to use a system without the println to do that. All right, so I'm going to first of all display the, let's see here, the lowest number, right? And I can call, let's start with a string. Let's form a string here. So I'm going to, this is going to be our lowest number. I'm going to concatenate it with a method called number analysis 1. Okay, number analysis 1. Okay, dot. And then we can call the method here, which is get, where is it? Get lowest number, right here. So get lowest number. All right, I'm going to concatenate it with a new line character, which is \n. Now \n, okay, after displaying all the stuff, we'll move the position from the current line to the next line, and anything that comes after this will be displayed from the next line going. Okay, together it's a command. So when the compiler sees this, it moves the position from the current line to the next line. Anything that follows this will be displayed from the next line going. Let's continue. I'm going to concatenate it with another string, and this is going to be our highest number, colon. I'm going to concatenate it with a method called to number analysis 1 dot get highest number this time around. That's the method, other method we created, which is here, get highest number, right here. Okay, I have 13 minutes to finish this, and that's why I'm kind of rushing, because I'm in the school library and I have to leave here in 13 minutes, but we'll finish it. All right, so let's go ahead and finish it. I'm going to concatenate this with another new line character, \n, concatenate it with, let's see here. The next thing is going to be our total, right? So total, colon. Now let's concatenate it with a call to, so number analysis dot get total of numbers, right? That's what we want to call get total of numbers. Let's concatenate that with a new line character, \n. Then let's get our average string, and let's make a call to number analysis dot get. We know that's called get average of numbers. Get average of numbers right here. All right. We have to bear in mind that we haven't created our file in our folder. If we open our folder, we don't have it. So let's open our folder here. It's on the desktop, right here. If I open Java Program Challenges Chapter 7 Number Analysis, we don't have a file in here. So when we try to open it, we may get an error. So let's compile this and see if we have any errors first of all. Cannot find symbol number analysis. Let's see. All right, so the object was called number analysis 1 and not number analysis. So number analysis 1 here, number analysis 1 here as well. Compile, and it cannot find number analysis 1. Let's see here. Method get total of number. Oh, is that what I called it? This was supposed to be get get total of numbers, right? Get total, how do we call it? We called it get total of numbers, not number. Get total of numbers. All right, so compile this, and it cannot find symbol number analysis 1. How did I spell it wrongly or wrong? Yeah, this I spelled this analysis. So it's analysis 1. Okay, that's the object name. Compile this, and let's keep going. All right, so we're getting the same error here because this code, okay, has the potential to cause an error. We also have to pass in throws IO exception. Throws IO exception here. Okay, this code here has the potential to cause an error because we haven't learned how to write our own exceptions, which we will later on. We have to let this method know that this method has code that has the potential to cause an error. So we are letting it know to kind of handle it for us until we write our own code again, which we will learn moving forward in later chapters. All right, so compile this, and we have more. Let's see, cannot find symbol class IO exception. All right, so if we are using this, right, if we are saying that it has the potential to create an exception of type IO exception, then that means we are kind of using files. We have to include or import that class. We are kind of dealing with files here, so we need to import that class so it can use it. All right, so I'm going to do that. Import, right? We kind of have to import the file, okay, the java.io, okay, all the classes in the java.io package, because we are saying that it has the potential to throw an exception of this type. We're dealing with files here, so let's go ahead and import that. Import java.io. Basically all the classes located in the java.io package. So we have to kind of import that in order for this to work, right? Because we're dealing with files. Compile this, and now it's done. All right, well, let's try to run this. It says, please enter the name of the file. I'm going to enter anything at all. Hit enter. Now it says SFS does not exist. Please type in the valid name. Another thing, hit enter. Does not exist. Please type in the valid name. All right, we don't have any file that exists. So let's go ahead and create one. All right, so I'm going to open my text editor. Make sure it's a text editor, a plain text editor, right? In text editor, if you go to preferences on a Mac, make sure it's set to plain text and not rich text. Plain text is just plain text. Rich text will have formatting behind the code, and sometimes it may give you an unexpected result. It may hide some data behind your text, and it may not process correctly, right? So make sure it's just plain text. And I'm going to create a new one, and I'm just going to store some numbers in here. Let's just keep it simple, 2.3, because I have to leave 4.5 and then 3.4. I'm going to save it in the same folder as, you have to save it in the same folder as the number analysis folder. Programming challenges, chapter 7, number analysis, where is it? Number analysis folder. Make sure you save it here, otherwise, it won't be able to read it, because it's reading everything from that same number analysis folder, chapter 7 number analysis folder. So I'm going to save it here as, I need to name it. I'm going to call it number analysis this way, .txt, and save. All right, so I have that file here. We can see it here. So now when I try, okay, let's compile this again and run. Open a file. First of all, anything, it doesn't work. But when I try to, you have to specify, type in the full name, including the .txt, including the extension, because it's looking for, the entire name of the file, number analysis.txt. Make sure you include the extension. So number analysis.txt. When I try to do it, let's see what happens. See, it works, and we can kind of verify. Let's verify. Okay, let's open our file and verify. I'm glad. That means we have 6 minutes to finish this. That's good. All right, so the lowest number is 2.3. We can cross check. The highest number is 4.5, and the total is 10.2. Right? We can kind of confirm. It's correct, but let's just kind of confirm. Right? So it's basically 2.3, okay, plus 4.5 plus 3.4, which is equal to 10.2. That's the total, and the average is basically the total divided by how many numbers are in the file. So 10.2, which is the total, divided by how many numbers in the file, which is 3. So divided by 3 gives us 3.4. So we can tell that the program is working. Okay, when you change the numbers, it also works as well. Change it just to, let's say, 7.4. Now the highest number should change to 7.4, and the numbers should change a little bit. I'm going to save it. I'm going to run the program again. When I type in anything, it says the file doesn't exist. Type in number analysis. Make sure the file is in the same folder. If it's not, you have to kind of specify the path to where the file is, where the text file is. So number analysis.txt, make sure you type in the full extension, hit enter. The value should be the same. Now you can format this later on. I don't think I have enough time, but I'll try my best to do that. All right, so lowest number is 2.3, highest number is 7.4, total is 14.2. We can cross check. So 2.3 plus 4.5 plus 7.4, it's 14.2, which is the total over here, divided by 3, how many numbers are in the file, which is 4.733. All right, so we have to round it to 2 decimal places. You can do that. So that's our average, or you can do it for all of them. I'm going to do it for the average for now. This is our entire average value. I'm going to use a string, okay, string.format method to surround this. And the string.format method takes in basically 2 parameters. Two arguments. How you want it formatted as a format string in double quotations, and what you want to format. This is how I want it formatted. I will specify that very soon. And this is what I want to format, our average. You can apply this for all of them. Okay, I want it formatted as a float. Okay, so I'm going to type in %f as a floating point value. So you always include this this is a conversion. We also include this, okay, with our conversion character in our format string. And so this is, I want to format it as a floating point value, and then I want it formatted to 2 decimal places, so I need to specify the precision in between the percentage and the f. I want it formatted to 2 decimal places, so I'm going to type in 0.2. If you wanted to format it to 3 decimal places, you do 0.3, right? I want it 2 decimal places, so 0.2, and then that's it. So I want it formatted as a floating point value to 2 decimal places. So compile this, run, let's use the same values, number analysis, .txt, hit enter, and we can see that it has been rounded. Even though this was 4.73333, it has been rounded to 4.73. All right, so I have 3 minutes to leave the library. I wish I had more time to kind of go through and test it out well, but we've done well. We've kind of written the program, and it works well. If these numbers are not rounded, you can apply the same string.format method around them, do it the same way, and it should work. So you need your class. We've created our program well because now we can create any file with how many numbers in there. It doesn't matter if it's 3 numbers or 10 numbers or 20 numbers. The program will automatically know how many numbers are in the file, do the calculation for you, and the number should be correct. You don't have to worry about whether it's you're not sticking with an exact number of numbers in the file, right? In this question, it said 12. All right, so I hope you get me. All right, so let me just copy this and paste it here. It doesn't really matter, but just for record. All right. Okay, just so we have questions in both files. Okay. All right, so if you have any, sorry, I was kind of rushing at the end. I wish I had more time so we can go through it, but everything is done. All right, so don't want to take your time and do it. If there's anything you don't understand, please feel free to comment down below, and I'll do everything to respond to them. Okay. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves. Have a good night. Have a good sleep. Have a good day. Have a nice time wherever you are. And I'll see you next time with your next video. All right then. Bye-bye.